friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. I'm Erin. So for today's video we are going to be focusing on some miracles. So my last couple of videos have been on the darker side, and truth be told, my mom kind of yelled at me. So I figured I would do something a little more lighter with Easter coming up this Sunday. So since the upcoming holiday is Easter, these are mainly focusing on miracles that have occurred in various churches. So the first one I want to talk about has to do with a crucifix that was in a church in Pennsylvania. Now, I had originally heard of this way back in the day when it aired on Unsolved Mysteries. When I was little, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries with my poppy, and 99.9% of the time, whether it was a happy thing or a scary thing, Unsolved Mysteries scared me. I think mostly because the host was a little creepy looking, and of course the theme song, that'll get you going every time. Anyway, so with this one, I distinctly remember it, and I do remember that this scared me, and it's pretty much because I was a little kid and the idea of what happened just kind of creeped me out. I actually had forgotten all about it until I was discussing with my friend Tiffany different videos I was going to do, and I had told her that I wanted to do a video on miracles, and she said, well, with Easter coming up, why don't you do this one? And she was right, so I decided to do it. Thanks, Tiff. As I said, this has to do with a crucifix that was in a church in Pennsylvania. So the event supposedly happened on Good Friday in 1989 at Holy Trinity Church in Ambridge, Pennsylvania. Apparently during a prayer service that they were having, an altar boy looked up at the crucifix that they have, which is a life-size crucifix, and he noticed that the eyes of Jesus were closed. Now, on some crucifixes, Jesus' eyes are closed. However, on this one, apparently they were partially open. So the altar boy noticed that the eyes, rather than being open, had closed. Once he had noticed, he informed his brother, who was the other altar boy, and he confirmed that, in fact, the eyes were normally open and now they were closed. So I guess after the service, they went up to the priest and they informed him of what they had seen. Now, I will say that this priest happened to be their uncle. Just keep that in mind. So the priest went and looked at the crucifix and realized that the eyes were closed as well. And then he also went and got another priest who also had confirmed that the eyes had originally been open and now were shut. In addition to this, he went and got an artist who had recently restored the crucifix, and he confirmed that he distinctly remembered painting the eyes that were open with acrylic paint. And then, of course, the other parishioners that were present in the church, they also confirmed that the eyes had previously been open and now that they were shut. Now, the eyes were not ever completely wide open on this crucifix. They were partially closed, as it is depicting Jesus dying on the cross. So when they say that the eyes had closed, one eye had completely closed, and then the other, I guess, was partially open, but not as open as it had been previously. Now, in addition to the eyes closing, one parishioner claims to have received a divine message, and this is what that divine message supposedly was. The message read, "I have given this sign for all of those who have faithfully come. Truly my presence is within this church. Within the months to come, many will flock to see what I have done. Welcome them just as the people of Medjugorje welcome those who flock to see my mother." Now, that last town reference has to do with another miracle that we're going to talk about, so keep that in mind as well. In fact, most members of the Holy Trinity Church were of Yugoslavian descent, and that is where Medjugorje is. Now, there are some people who feel that this whole thing is just a hoax, so I was just going to go over some of the reasons why they say that it is. So most skeptics, of course, say that this is just an elaborate hoax, it was all made up, or that people's eyes were playing tricks on them. So kind of like a Mandela effect, where these people thought that the eyes were open, but the eyes, in fact, had been closed the whole time. Other skeptics claim that the priest that was in this church wanted to bring more parishioners to his church and make it just as popular as the area of Medjugorje. So they say that he had made up the whole story and created this as a hoax. Like I said, keep in mind that the 2 altar boys that had brought this to the priest's attention were actually his nephews. So people say that the priest made the hoax and he had his nephews in on it, as well as the artist and the other priest who also confirmed that the eyes were closed. Now, as far as parishioners go, they think that maybe they have just been mistaken. Like I said, it was kind of like a Mandela effect. So this miracle aired on Unsolved Mysteries back in September in 1989, so a long time ago. Several weeks later, the diocese in Pittsburgh actually started to review the pictures and the videos of the statue. Now, I could only find one comparison picture, and to be honest with you, it's pretty darn bad. Obviously, technology wasn't as great as it is now. We don't have like digital SLR cameras like the one that I'm filming this on. They were more film cameras. So I'll go ahead and show you guys the picture that compares the before and after. And aside from that, I really couldn't find much on the actual crucifix or any pictures or videos of it from this particular church. Anyway, after the church had reviewed these pictures and videos, they came to the conclusion that a miracle had not occurred. However, that being said, they did feel that the witnesses who came forward about this were being sincere. And another thing that makes people believe that this might have been a hoax was that the priest actually resigned a couple weeks after the church came out with these findings. And he said it was for the best interest of the church. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the Medjugorje miracles themselves. So I'm probably going to butcher this, but Medjugorje is a town that's in Bosnia/Herzegovina. I never knew that Bosnia was divided like that. I've just heard of Bosnia. Anyway, I'll write it down at the bottom. Like I said, I probably completely butchered the name of that country. In any event, the town is close to the Croatian border. So what happened in this small town is that in 1981, 6 children claimed that they saw a vision of a woman up on the hill. They said that she was a very beautiful woman and that she had been emanating light and holding a child. Obviously, they believed that this was the Virgin Mary. These children began to call themselves visionaries, and they had claimed to see daily apparitions of the Virgin Mary for several years. In fact, there are 3 of them who still claim to see the daily apparitions. The others claim that they no longer have the daily visions. So after these children made their visions known, thousands of people began to flock to the area just so they could potentially see the Virgin Mary themselves and speak to her. As these people began to flood in, many of them began to claim that they were being healed from various ailments that they had. There are many people who claim that after going to the village once or even multiple times, that they were cured of the cancer that they had. There was another example of a man who was in an accident and his bone was shattered in his leg, and after visiting Medjugorje, he claims that his leg began to miraculously heal. There are people who suffer from addictions who have also gone to the area who claim that after visiting they became clean and stayed clean and lived a clean and sober life. So in addition to the miracles that people have witnessed, such as curing ailments, there are also some other supernatural phenomenon that happen in the area. So there are people who claim that after visiting the area, they have gone back home and found old rosaries in areas where they know they would have seen them previously, and it seems as if they've just appeared. In addition to finding old rosaries, apparently people have witnessed rosaries turning into gold right there in the village. So another supernatural event that many people have claimed to have witnessed is they see the sun spinning. And on another occasion, there were several hundred people who claimed to have seen a fire on a nearby mountainside that actually didn't catch anything around it on fire and just happened to stay in one spot. So those are the miracles of Medjugorje. So this next one, I also remember seeing on Unsolved Mysteries, and I got the idea to talk about it looking at a website, which I'll link below, that has the different miracles that actually aired on Unsolved Mysteries. And while I had forgotten about it since it's been so long, after reviewing it yesterday, I thought it was really interesting, so I figured I'd go ahead and talk about it. And this has to do with the West End Baptist Church. So the West End Baptist Church is located in Beatrice, Nebraska. Between 1920 and 1950, a woman named Martha Poole was the choir director, and she was very strict and always wanted the members of the choir to be very prompt for choir practice and arrive and have the practice start at 7:25 p.m. Well, on March 1st, 1950, all 15 members of the choir happened to be late. And as you'll find out, this was a very good thing. So here are the various reasons why these choir members were late. So one member's child had spilled food on her dress and she needed to press a new one for her daughter. This happened to be the pastor's daughter. Another one decided that they were going to mail a letter before coming to choir practice and knew that they would be late. Another woman became engrossed in a radio show that she had been listening, and this in turn made her late to go pick up another member to go to choir practice, so they were both late. Another group of sisters was going to be late because their car wouldn't start. A woman who lived across the street was ready to go, but she just felt too tired to get up and go. Another choir member was busy working on homework and trying to figure out a geometry problem. Another woman and her daughter were actually going to be missing the choir practice because they had to go to a family member's house to get ready for a missionary meeting. A man whose wife was away was taking care of their children, and he was supposed to bring the children to choir practice with him that night. However, he got engrossed in talking with someone, and after a while realized what the time was and that he too was going to be late for choir practice. So the pianist, who happened to be the choir director's daughter, had actually planned on going to choir practice early to tidy up at the church. However, she fell asleep after eating dinner and was very hard to be awoken, according to her mother, the choir director, which in turn made the both of them late as well. Apparently earlier in the day, around 4:30 in the afternoon, the pastor had gone to the church to turn on the heat so that it would be warmed up for when the choir came to practice. However, instead of heating up the church, all that was happening was gas was being emitted into the church, and at 7:27 p.m., the church actually exploded. Thankfully, since everybody had been running late, absolutely no choir members or any of their children were injured from this explosion. And that's what makes this a miracle. Okay, so the final thing I want to talk about is kind of near and dear to my heart. And this is about what's been called the Little Chapel That Stood. So many remember the tragedy that happened on September 11th. When the towers fell, most of the buildings that were around them were either destroyed or damaged in some way, shape, or form. All the buildings except for one. That would be St. Paul's Chapel. St. Paul's Chapel is actually located right across the street from the site of the World Trade Center. After the towers had collapsed, St. Paul's was virtually unscathed. There wasn't even a pane of glass broken in this church. There was debris and such outside in the churchyard, and actually mostly what had saved the church was a giant tree that was in the churchyard. That fell when the towers collapsed, and it actually took the brunt of most of the force that came from it, and that's essentially what ended up saving the church. But I just think it's amazing that not a single pane of glass in this church was broken. So during the cleanup efforts, St. Paul's Church became a vital place for various rescue workers and other volunteers who were helping to go through the wreckage and clean up. It became a place of refuge for them to come and just rest and kind of collect their thoughts. And to this day, St. Paul's obviously is still there, and I've actually been there a couple times when I've visited New York City. Okay guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe as well. Thanks guys. See you next time.